everyone, back at it again in my little yellow kayak. I just launched the kayak and I pretty much landed onto a school of bait. You can see them flipping around in the top left corner of your screen. Those are juvenile herring. And for every 100 you see, there's probably 1,000 below them. It's kind of like an iceberg, you only see the tip. This lake probably has millions of herring in it. It's hard to describe just how much bait is in this lake. But that's why there's so many bass in here. It's because there's a large forage base beyond just panfish. They also stock it with trout. So there's plenty for the bass to eat, plenty to choose from. But with this much bait, they can be kind of picky. You know, they have pretty much an unlimited food supply and they can eat anytime they want to. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet every day, all day, and all night. And these herring are just flipping around like happy herring. They're eating, frolicking around. Ideally, you want to see bait balls that are being busted on by bass. And that seems to trigger a response in the school of bass that makes them all feed more aggressively. And the second best thing would be nervous herring. So they get into like tight balls and the water just looks nervous. It kind of shimmies. They're not frolicking around like happy little herring. They're nervous herring. They're packed together in a tight school because they're afraid of being eaten. And they're trying to make themselves look like one giant mass that maybe a predator fish wouldn't want to tangle with. Anyway, I've got more happy herring here. So I'm still fishing it. I'm fishing with a Zoom Super Fluke just to see if I can pull out any fish that are lurking around these schools. But I don't have high hopes right here because the herring are acting like they don't have a care in the world. You know, they might not like a big yellow kayak going through the school, but they're not acting like there's bass underneath them. Kept working my way from herring school to herring school, and I found a little pot of bait that was kind of nervous. And I think I saw a bass blow up on him, so I kind of slid over here. The herring went down, probably because the bass blew up on him. And I cast a Zoom Super Fluke at him in a disco violet color, and that one smashed it. I'm fishing it fairly quickly, right below the surface of the water. So most of the time that fluke is probably 6 inches below the surface of the water. So when they hit it, they push up, and it's almost like a topwater bite. You know, so it's kind of fun. I like fishing a fluke. I always feel like I'm doing something, and I have potential to catch some fish with it. Anytime they're on bait, it's a good idea. And I just kept running the same pattern, running from herring school to herring school. And there weren't a ton of fish on them. They weren't like actively blowing up on them. But every once in a while, I'd pull one from out of these herring schools. I couldn't see any fish, any predator fish. I just saw the herring. This one almost jumped in the boat twice. That's a nice smallie. Smallies seem to like the Super Fluke just as well as the largemouth. Comes through the weeds. The grass is getting a little bit longer now, so stuff like crankbaits, even spinnerbaits with that blade spinning, chatterbaits, all of them get kind of gunked up with that clingy grass stuff. But the Super Fluke comes through it all pretty well. And like I said, I like throwing it. I like working it. I could work it pretty fast and aggressive, so it's just running about 6 inches below the surface of the water. And when they hit it, they really blast it. You know, a lot of times they'll come out of the water just like coming out for a super spook or something like that, or a popper or a whopper plopper. So it's a fun way to fish. I've got bluebird skies on this trip. I also have a little bit of wind. It's blowing southwest. The forecast had it blowing west, and it's not exactly west. But that wind is building, and I can get away with a full-size Super Fluke in these conditions, even with the bluebird skies. If I didn't have any wind, I would immediately drop down to BFS gear and throw like a little Super Fluke Junior or that Bass Assassin shad on lighter line. I'm fishing 30-pound braid. It's Berkley X9 braid and a 12-pound Yozuri hybrid leader. And I got another one. Now in this case I wasn't fishing herring schools. I kind of ran out of herring schools. I was fishing an offshore weed flat. Every once in a while you can see some of the grass underneath the surface of the water. It hasn't really topped out yet, so I'm getting away with that fluke. That one got it down pretty well. That Gamakatsu G Finesse hybrid worm hook really sticks them well, and it holds pretty well too. I'm liking that hook, especially for flukes, but you could use it for a bunch of other things. As long as the profile isn't too bulky, I think it will work fine. Another largemouth, there he goes. You can see some of the grass on my line there. I'm still working this offshore weed flat. I've got a few wispy clouds to my west, but mostly bluebird skies. And without the wind, these would be really tough conditions, but the wind really helps. I just have to focus on baits that are a little bit more subtle. You can see some of the weeds. I just went over some weeds. You could see them in the water. And that's what I'm fishing, these long running offshore grass flats, weed flats. And I'm just kind of fan casting them and trying to get a fish to react to that Zoom Super Fluke. It's a good bait because you can kind of trigger them into biting under these conditions, whereas some other baits, they'd be harder to trigger. I thought about netting that one. I had a hard time getting my thumb on them, but I managed to get it done. And they're starting to fatten up after the spawn. They were looking pretty skinny for a few weeks, but they're starting to fatten up again now. Probably from eating those herring. And little sunfish and I guess whatever else they can fit down their throats. They're not too picky when it comes to eating. There's a jumper. See if I can do a better job getting my thumb on this one. Hey, I got him. Now I could do the same pattern closer to shore, but what I found is I get more pickerel that way, and they will bite through 12-pound Yozuri hybrid. So I feel like I'm a little better off offshore. At least to the pickerel sniff out these offshore spots too. And I got another fish. Now this is a little bit later on in the morning, and I'm doing something a little different. I'm waiting for that fluke to fall. So I was dead drifting that fluke. When the bite gets tough, that's a good technique. And some other baits are even better for it, like the Yamamoto D-Shad, the Strike King Caffeine Shad Junior, or the full-size Caffeine Shad. I feel like they're a little bit heavier. They fall with a better shimmy. But you can do it with a Zoom Super Fluke too. So you just cast it out, let it fall, watch the line, and when the line starts going tight, you reel in and set the hook, and you reel in a fish. Alright, I had a good time out here this morning. These bright blue skies I could do without, but it's alright. It's always fun. Got a little exercise this morning. Gave the fish a little exercise too. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Just like all my other videos, I'll list all the gear in the video description so you can duplicate what I was doing here today on your home lake, wherever that might be. Hopefully have some good success there too. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!